I thought this life would be easy, a wide open road with the radio on. A full tank of gas, the windows rolled down, singing my favorite song. With a summer breeze rolling through my hair, not a care in the world, and a clear blue sky. Out here having fun, soaking up the sun, speeding toward a happy and carefree life. But sometimes you come to a fork in the road. Sometimes you stop, don't know which way to go, but you gotta keep on driving, chase that horizon, stop all your crying and find a way to a place where it all makes sense. 'Cause where your heart's leading you ain't no accident. Look your worries right in the eyes and say, not this time. This time I'm gonna win. Starting today, you can't stop fate, so go find a way. Go find a way. Walk through fire if you have to, climb every mountain, swim every sea. Turn over every rock on your journey, 'cause nothing is free. Pain will always find your weakness, it'll do anything just to keep you down. So don't let your problems steal your strength, get yourself off the ground. And when they say that it can't be done, that's the moment you need to step up and keep on driving, chase that horizon, stop all your crying, find a way to a place where it all makes sense. 'Cause where your heart's leading you ain't no accident. You gotta keep on trying, go down fighting, keep on rising and find a way to a life unafraid. Go out there and live your destiny. Look your worries right in the eyes and say, not this time. This time I'm gonna win. Today's a new day and you can't stop fate. Today's a new day and you can't stop fate. So go find a way. Yeah, go find a way. Go find a way. Go find a way.
And welcome to a Monday night, Studio 67. KLOMP's away. He's shooting some behind-the-scenes footage of the Northern Ontario Expo and Timmins, the Timmins Expo coming up in a few weeks. So he's doing some work with Jason Dennis and crew. So we thought tonight, while KLOMP's away, we're going to give you a bit of a recap of what happened this weekend at the Stardust Festival. A lot of great things happening with NASA and space exploration here in the city. And we had the pleasure to be at College Boreal. Launch Canada was across the street at the Sportsplex. And I should mention, tonight, you comment on tonight's show, you have a chance to win 4 passes to the Timmins Fall Fair coming up September 9th and 10th. So without further ado, we're going to go back and talk to one of the main gentlemen who you know, is a main point and part of bringing Stardust and the Stardust Festival to Timmins. It was our Mayor of Provincial Parliament, George Pirie. And again, crank it up for George. It's loud, the ambience at the Sportsplex, but here it is. We are having an amazing week here. It's not too often you get NASA coming to Timmins. Well, all the space gurus are here. The 2023 Stardust Festival for the first time ever. George Pirie, the member of Provincial Parliament, is joining us here on the show. And it's just an amazing feat to see all this space activity in the city of Timmins for the first time.
It really is, Mark. I was first associated with this in Cochrane a year ago. My friend Rail Cousineau said, look, you got to meet this guy, Jason Michel. I did, went up to Cochrane and was really enthusiastic about what they were doing. They were shooting off the rockets north of Lake Abitibi. They needed more room. And I said, boy, we got to get this here happening in Timmins, because at that particular time, everybody that was attending was actually housed in Timmins. So what better place to have it right here in Timmins. I immediately went back out to the city, ensured that that could happen in the city of Timmins. I talked to TDC and I talked to KTMLA, because this is all to promote the youth and partnerships with the Indigenous communities. And KTM, as you know, is involved with the Calgary First Nation, and they jumped all over it. They've been a significant partner for the whole thing. So we have it here in Timmins, and we've got this represents an incredible opportunity for the city of Timmins. This is only the second time this has even happened in Canada.
In Canada.
And you take a look,
and let alone the first time ever in Timmins, hitting Timmins soil.
Only the second time that it was just 2 years ago they got the permission to launch rockets.
Yeah.
And so it starts on the ground here in Timmins, and it really has started out in a grand fashion. So there's celebrations associated with this event. They've kicked off, like Thursday night was at the Dante Club.
Yeah.
Last night
with an amazing spread, the barn. They've rolled out the red carpet for Timmins all this week.
And this morning we had the opening ceremonies for the announcement over here with the Stardust Festival. Yesterday morning we had the groups from the States at Kid Creek. We wanted to get down to 10,200 feet deep, but we couldn't do it yesterday morning. But we got down to about 9,000 feet. We showed some openness, some mining activities.
And is that not where the oldest water on the planet is, where you were on that tour?
$2.6 billion, 2.6 billion years old.
Wow. And did they let you taste that? I'm just curious.
You can. Apparently you can. Apparently it smells, but it's safe. There's no bacteria. Of course, it's that old, and it's so deep into the earth that there's no bacteria. But everybody that was there was really excited about that. There's another hole that it was an exploration hole that goes much deeper. Mm-hmm. They melt water from that as well, so they're going to be analyzing that to see how old it is. But when you think about that, right here in Cape Creek at where we were yesterday morning, provides some of the clues for the genesis of the planet.
Yeah.
Right here is, I think, extremely exciting.
And that's why all the space folk, all the higher ups from NASA are here, because if you can mine that deep, let's say on planet Earth, who's to say we can't do that on planet Mars and the Moon and other space exploration? You got to start somewhere.
Well, think about the Indian project that just landed successfully in the South Pole of the Moon. Mm-hmm. Where they're looking for water, and they're looking to say if they find water there, then it'll support life and perhaps support a colony for future exploration. But where does it start? It starts with mining. They want to look they're looking for resources. And what's the genesis, or what's the start of one of the centers of mining globally is right here in Timmins, and Kid Creek is a world-class operation. Very exciting conversations with some brilliant people, and right here in this floor of the rink, we're surrounded with young, brilliant people. These kids come from all over Canada. And there's 23 universities that are involved in and around Timmins this weekend or this week, because they want to talk to these kids.
Yeah.
One of the kids that's involved in the opening ceremony this morning, she's from Timmins. And so, it's important for me to excite people
about space. Yeah, and
also,
exploration, and again, different job opportunities. People think of being in the trades. Well, why not be in the space for the programs that are out there?
You want to excite the best and brightest people that we have here within all across North America, talking to our kids here in Timmins. It's a really inspirational moment for me. I was inspired last year, and I'm even more inspired right now because we've collected such a group of people working together to make this happen. And please, you've got to take a look at this out here. You look at the rockets that are on the floor here at the Sportsplex. And
they're not just little minor rockets. Like these things are taller than buildings in some cases.
Really and truly, these are big enough. And these kids build this themselves at the universities. They save the companies millions of dollars, and these are the kids that hopefully will build this center. So this will be a center here in Timmins. What do they need? They need more support. They need more money.
Need more funding. Now, speaking of money, there was a great presentation at the opening ceremonies. Noella Ronaldo and the Mat Tax. $60,000 goes a long way. That check presentation, where that money is a great boost for organizations in this program.
It certainly is. That portion of the Mat Tax, of course, it supports that people coming into the city, and what are they doing? They're staying in hotels. So it's the accommodation tax, and it comes from people staying in hotels. And how do you attract people to hotels? With events
with big events like this.
That was one of the reasons. One of the first things I did last year was talk to people, to the Timmins Economic Development Corporation, to ensure you excited their minds, because you've heard me talk about this many times. Mark, Timmins is the hub of the future. With what we're doing with our mining, critical minerals, everything here that we got here in Northern Ontario. I mean, this is what the world needs and wants right here at Timmins. We've got it here. Folks, we just have to recognize what we've got here, and this is the future right now.
This is the future of space exploration. Again, Launch Canada. Again, NASA in the city all this week. This is just an amazing week with the Stardust Festival 2023, and again, one of the big projects that you helped, get on the ground here in Timmins when you took over as the new MPP for the province. How are things going? I
will tell you about that, but I want to show you this patch. This is they're going to they'll have a new patch every year, and that says Timmins 2023. That's that Launch Canada, Timmins, Ontario.
He's going to go up to like the International Space Station. Like these patches will be.
Okay, so this is
launched.
Timmins. Okay, folks, this is what Timmins is all about.
This is what Timmins is all about, and of course, you are our member of provincial parliament. How are things going for 2023? Obviously, big events like this. What else is on the plate? Can you fill us in a bit?
I really enjoy the ministry work. There's no doubt about it. It was my vocation, and that was my livelihood. I go out to all the mines, and this is my third time touring to Pitt Creek. I've had two ministers here, and again, the people from the space agency in the U.S. here. So you want to showcase what we've got here in Timmins, but I also do that, of course, all through the north. So when I'm out in the mines, it's really a day of vacation. I talk to the mining people. I'm underground. I enjoy it, and it's because of that background, and also I think because of my passion for the mining sector, that hopefully I'm making a difference. We passed our first bill, Bill 71, in March. That was kind of a bit of a record pace that we got that done, and we're building out the regulations right now with full consultation with the Indigenous people. It's a very important bill, as you know. The motivation for me getting involved in politics is provincial politics was for many years fighting to get Cody Lake being permanent, and finally we had a permanent British government got involved with the last government with Premier Ford. They appointed a senior environmental advisor, got that over the top, and so Cody Lake is being built. And so what are you doing? You got 1,600 people employed. It's a $2 billion project.
It's a big money maker.
Oh my God!
Great for the area for sure.
The Matagami First Nation and Fine folks are fully employed, and environmentally, they don't even discharge water. It's what miners do. It's why it is. We don't have to take a back seat to anybody in the world. Canadian miners are the best, and Northern Ontario miners are the best of the best. We know what we're doing. We know how to do it, and we know how to do it correctly, sustainably. So that's the passion I bring to the Ministry of Mines, and we're getting the job done. And hopefully, obviously, we're helping these out. There's a benefit of what we're doing, So yeah, very happy with that.
Very happy with that, and it sounds like you've had a busy summer. Do you take time off? Is there golfing? What's any summer fun for Mr. Pirie when it's not all work? What are you doing for play these days?
I took about 4 days off in around my birthday. And so it was my birthday on June 30th, and so my son Stu said he was going to go golfing with my grandson Charlie. Charlie's 9 years old, and Charlie's just starting to golf, so we golfed and went out there first thing in the morning, and I had my first shot was the best.
And then that was it. They always say there's one shot that keeps you coming back. That was it.
Yeah. So and Charlie beat me. So he's 9 years old. So I enjoy the walk. I'm a terrible golfer, that's for sure.
Don't they say? Isn't that Mark Twain saying it's a walk spoiled? Is playing the game of golf? Why do they call golf? Because all the other four-letter words were taken, right? But George Pirie, our member of provincial parliament, always a pleasure to see you, and the great work that you're doing for our province. Bringing amazing events like this, Launch Canada. It's not every day you see NASA in the building. We've got the stratospheric balloon base in action up at the airport currently.
Look, I really that was one of the best events I've ever been at.
And the balloon launches are amazing.
Unbelievable. We got $1.6 million from the province into the city to make that happen. The technology is amazing. What they're doing, they call it near space, but look, you're right there. You're in the envelope of space right there. It's, I think, over 40 kilometers high with those balloons.
40 kilometers high. At one point, 100-something thousand feet. Double that of a commercial airliner. And again, they do all these different tests, which they can take up to the International Space Station.
Oh, yeah, they do that work for the fraction of a cost of other methods. And again, talking to the best and brightest people, exciting for the youth of Timmins to be involved in that. Incredible. I spent most of the afternoon talking to people there. Really inspirational to see that happening here in Timmins. You see the building being built, and you see them developing the technology, building it right there in the city of Timmins. I gotta go back to David Greenville.
Yes, an awesome guy and a spiritual driver of that event every year.
Joe, I mean, they were there at the beginning, and as I said when I was speaking there, it takes an individual with a vision, individuals with visions, a vision and a passion for their hometown. And that's why it's happening here in Timmins. You combine that, and we can do anything here in Timmins. We've got the passion, and we've got the people to make it happen. And that was, I really enjoyed that event. It was tremendous.
Like the balloon base, Launch Canada, the Stardust Festival, 2023, all happening under one roof. This week, we've got all the festivities happening. And again, we always a pleasure having you on board with us. The member of provincial parliament, George Pirie. Thanks for all the amazing work that you do. Thanks for joining us here on KINZ and KLOMP, and enjoy the rest of the week of the Stardust Festival.
Will do. Thanks a lot. Take care.
All right, there you have it. One of our guests that we ran into down at the Sportsplex our member of provincial parliament, George Pirie, and again, a big piece to bring the Stardust Festival to the city of Timmins. And guess what? We had the chance to hear all these amazing keynote speakers, which, by the way, one of the big keynote speakers from this weekend, we've saved that for you. We've had comments for the past couple of days now, or it was just yesterday when we had the chance to chat with one of the astronauts, the captain of Apollo 13, one of the ones who flew it, Fred Haise, was one of the keynote speakers. And we've got the treat for you. We are going to take a quick break, thank our sponsors, and we're going to go back to yesterday at the keynote speaker podium where we had the chance to chat from Armadillo, Texas. Joined us in Timmins, Fred Haise. And again, he's played by Bill Paxton in the movie Apollo 13. I think Fred's actually better looking than Bill Paxton. We'll chat with, we'll hear what, Apollo 13 captain, astronaut Fred Haise has to say after this. In the Iroquois Falls Storm Home Opener Contest is up on our KINZ and KLOMP Facebook page. Your chance to go there now for a chance to win 2 tickets to the Friday, September 8th home opener at the Just Jordan Arena. And how about 2 carnival wristbands to Canuck Amusements, all courtesy of Iroquois Falls Events Committee. And the McIntyre Curling Club registration is well underway. Register online prior to September 15th and receive a $20 club gift card. All the details at maccurl@curlthemac.ca. And where innovation meets the cosmos in an awe-inspiring celebration that transcends imagination is the Stardust Festival, happening this week in Timmins and the Matagami First Nation. Get all the details at stardustfestival.com. And coming up Thursday, it's another urban park market put on by the Downtown Timmins BIA this Thursday along Cedar in your downtown from 11 to 2. And welcome to Timmins Night. Save the date, September the 6th at the McIntyre Curling Club. We'll see you down there from 6 to 8. And the Timmins Fall Fair coming up the weekend of September 9th and 10th at the Mount Joy Arena. Come and check out the human tractor pull, the super dog, some amazing food, some amazing live music, arm wrestling, and even a baby contest. Out with the Northeastern Catholic District School Board. Can you believe it? Back to school this week, and if you haven't registered, still time to do so online at ncdsb.on.ca. And boost a business with Gerona's Borden Kelly Lawyers and win free promotion of your business. Your chance to be a part of Week 9. Go find the post on our Facebook page. Enter a business. Winning business will be chosen this Friday morning. Good luck. And how about Smokey Robinson Events and Catering? You'll find him at Full Beard Brewing, and you'll find him on Instagram and on TikTok. Order today. He now delivers 705-232-8771. And with the recent fire happening at the mini pot and batting cages, we're going to help Don Marcoux get back on his feet. Let's help out with that GoFundMe. Go to our KINZ and KLOMP Facebook page. The link for that GoFundMe is up on our page. Hopefully you can make a donation today. And the Alzheimer's Society Cochrane-Temiskaming Duck Race Raffle coming up September 21st at 1 p.m. Do you have your first prize duck? Could be worth $5,000. You can buy your tickets today through the Alzheimer's Society for $5 per ticket. And the Punjabi restaurant located in downtown Timmins at 211A Algonquin Boulevard East, they now cater Chinese. And how about the Timmins Expo with the Northern Ontario Expo coming up the weekend of September 16th and 17th? Book a booth now. You can register and be a part of the action. NorthernOntarioExpo.com. And DAP Cleaning Solutions, residential commercial cleaning excellence guaranteed. Call Andrew N to book now for your carpet cleaning, strip, and wax jobs for your commercial unit today. 705-465-3500. And when you're buying or selling, you put your house on the market with this guy. Have Albert seal your deal with Royal LePage Northern Realty Leaders. Call Albert today, 705-465-3493. And the Cooperators Timmins for some investment advice, life insurance plans. Call today and book an appointment, 705-264-4395, or go visit Sebastian Vermette at 239 Wilson Avenue in Timmins. And Jackpot City Gaming. Progressive Jackpots, play some bingo, and they're now fully licensed for you at 251 First Avenue. And Dare Timmins giving you a chance to win foam pit parties for 4 and batting cage passes for 4 to the mini putt and batting cages. Of course, a recent fire has closed the facility, but we're going to get Don back up and running. Go to our KINZ and KLOMP Facebook page for that GoFundMe link today. And Meg 2, The Trench. How about Blue Beetle and Gran Turismo coming up on the big screen at Imagine Cinemas? Get all your tickets and showtimes at imaginecinemas.com. And the Porcupine Gold Kings second annual mixed slow pitch tournament is coming up the weekend of September 15th right here in the city. Register a team today for $400, and all the money raised will go towards the operational cost for the Gold Kings. Contact Rick Lamotte to put a team in at 705-365-0105. And Amanda Lynn Mayhew from Canada Sportsman Channel, Just Hunt Inc., and That Hunting Girl. How about the U18A Gold King tryouts coming up Monday, September the 11th, Tuesday the 12th, and Wednesday, September 13th at the Whitney Arena. Get all the details. You can register now at the PMHA Facebook page. And how about YBC League Bowling? They are looking for you to register for the upcoming league. Monday, that's tonight, and tomorrow, 6 to 8 at $60 to register, and it's free family bowling at the time of registration.
So I asked to talk a little bit about my life story, and I'll do that, and later I'll open it up if anybody from the audience wants to ask questions. I feel I was very lucky in life because one of the things that all of us, and particularly young children, I stress, they should try to figure out the talent they've been born and blessed with. And try to match that with a career that best fits that talent you have, because it makes things easier for the challenges it may take if you set a goal of how you're going to use that talent and what career path to get the proper training and schooling experience to be successful along the way. Now, I have to say, my experience had an accident in it, so to speak. I initially became interested in becoming a journalist because in high school, I worked on the school newspaper and was sports editor and enjoyed that. And part-time during after hours or Pee Wee League games, those sort of things. And during summers, I worked for a local newspaper in Biloxi, Mississippi on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And was continuing education beyond high school in that direction at a community college, a junior college, it was called then, for 2 years with a major of journalism, intending to work in the newspaper business. Well, again, it was one of these abrupt changes in life that fortuitously happened to me. There was a war going on, the Korean War. And many of my relatives, 3 of them, had served during World War II, and I decided I should serve my country and enlisted. But at the time, with 2 years of college and being the age I was, 18, the only program I could join that would lead to a commission as an officer, which my dad had always stressed I should try to do, was the Naval Aviation Cadet Program. Now, I had never been interested in flying airplanes. In fact, at the time, I had never ever even been in an airplane, even sitting on the ground. So this was a quite remarkable change that was affected. But it turned out I didn't mind the 4 months of training under tutorship of Marine drill instructors. And the first time I flew and got above the earth, not very high, probably about 5,000 or 6,000 feet in this airplane, training airplane, S&J, it was magical to me. I mean, it was incredible to be flying around and looking at roadways, railways, cities with the streets laid out. And right then I decided, well, this is going to be my life. My life course and mission was to really stay in aviation. Now, I did not have an idea of what I was going to do in aviation, be it an airline pilot or stay in the Marine Corps. At the time when I graduated from flight training, I went into a Marine fighter squadron, VMF 533. and ended up serving in the 2nd Marine Fighter Squadron, VMF 114. And so I really wasn't sure, should I stay in the Marine Corps or search another course outside, but to stay in aviation. Of course, you have to realize the time I'm talking about, I went into the military in 1952. So at that time, there was no space program. So, I couldn't aspire to be an astronaut or fly in space. That didn't exist yet. So I read a lot of books. I talked to other people in my squadron, my leaders, and their experience. And one of them had been through the Naval Aviation test program, a test pilot program at Patuxent River NAS, Naval Air Station. And I said, well, looking around, I thought I'd work for either maybe a company when I got out, but I realized to be a test pilot, I was going to have to go back to school, because one of the ingredients is to have a degree in engineering, particularly. Most people don't realize it, but when you're a test pilot, you don't just sit around waiting for someone to call you one day and say, let's go fly the airplane. You're really involved in the test program from the very start, more as a system engineer, worrying about how you're going to operate the machinery, how you're going to operate the airplane. And you spend a lot of time with the cockpit layout, with what the instruments should look like, worrying about the malfunctions with the reliability engineering people, and what are going to be the contingencies that you deal with and how you deal with them in the airplane. So there's a lot of work before you ever fly a test aircraft. And I searched a few companies, major companies in the U.S. like Lockheed, McDonnell, and I talked to my squadron commander at the time. I was while going to school, back to school at the University of Oklahoma. My squadron commander had worked early in his career at NASA Langley, which is the first center NASA had. At the time, that was NACA. That had not become NASA yet. Stanley Newman was my squadron commander, and he recommended I look at working for NASA or NACA when we were talking about that. And he said, because if you go to a company and they're building a new airplane, he said, you'll be around maybe 3, 4, 5 years even before the airplane's built, tested, manufactured, designed, tested, and manufactured, and ready to fly, before you ever get to fly it. He said, whereas you go to NACA, they're involved in a number of aircraft test programs, and you'll get a lot more experience in different aircraft and different type of testing, mainly toward improving aircraft performance and aircraft safety. So I did search around NACA at the time, and when I graduated, I found the only opening I could find was at Lewis Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. And by this time, incidentally, within that year, it had become NASA. And the space program had arrived with the pick of the first 7 astronauts. And in fact, several, they all came to Lewis to test on one rig we had in a large high bay, of tumbling them in this rig and having them try to recover from the excursions. But at any rate, I went to work at Lewis, and one of my first major programs I was with there was the development of a zero-G program with a Navy AJ-2 aircraft. It was the first aircraft the Navy had that could carry an atomic bomb and go shipboard on an aircraft carrier. It had a fairly large payload bay, which was good for floating experiments around. Now, we were not into testing the human. There was actually the very first zero-G program was done by the Air Force, U.S. Air Force, at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Well, actually, they started it with some jet fighters at White Sands, New Mexico, And then they had a 2-engine transport airplane they developed and were testing at Wright-Patterson, Ohio, floating people around, doing more aerospace medicine type testing of human subjects. But we were testing fluid systems like the cooling system for the SNAP 8 nuclear power generator. We tested tank configurations and for screens ultimately used in the Centaur rocket, those sorts of things. Interesting, Lewis was a starting place for several other of my friends that ended up in the space program in different ways. One was Neil Armstrong, the person who landed first on the moon on Apollo 11. He started his career at Lewis, then moved to Edwards Air Force Base, flying the X-15 before applying and becoming an astronaut at Johnson Space Center, which was then Manned Spacecraft Center. But Joe Vensel, who was later head of flight operations at Edwards NASA facility in California, Joe Agrani, who moved on to Langley and then to Houston, was in charge of flight operations, trying to upkeep the T-38 aircraft that I flew later when I became an astronaut. So a number passed through Lewis on their way into either Space Task Group or NASA Johnson Space Center for the Apollo program. But after 3.5 years at Lewis, I followed Neil Armstrong's trail and applied, had an opening and went to Edwards Air Force Base, which was kind of the premier aircraft flight test operation for NASA at the time. So I transferred to there and was there 3.5 years. Flew a number of test programs, supported the X-15 program, but unfortunately, I never got to fly the vehicle. I was moving into the office. I was the junior person. 3 others at the time. I was very envious of my boss, Joe Walker, Jack McKay, and Milt Thompson in the office were all flying the X-15 at the time I arrived, and so I was jealous of them. But I flew other types of programs. But for the X-15, I'd fly weather flights the morning of launch, or check the upper range lake beds, or fly chase on the X-15 launch days. So I had that involvement, but never quite got into the cockpit of the X-15. I'm sad to say. But after 3.5 years, realizing, just looking at the time frame and where the X-15 program was, I was still 2 ahead of me in the office in seniority, and it kind of went that way that you would get your turn. So I realized I would probably not get to ever fly the X-15 if I stayed at Flight Research Center, it was known as at that time. And so I thought hard about applying to be an astronaut. So a new selection had come up, requests for volunteers or candidates. And I had to think real hard about that because I looked at what I was doing, and I was flying about 8 or 9 different aircraft during that time period, and different programs, smaller programs, test programs, as a prime pilot for the program, or an evaluation pilot, what we called other people we brought in to verify our findings in handling qualities, for instance, and that particular aircraft. And done a lot of flying almost every day. And I called, but Neil Armstrong visited us at Flight Research Center. And Don Malik and I, another fellow pilot, cornered Neil and asked him, "What's it like being an astronaut?" And Neil said, "Well, you sit in a lot of meetings, you sit in a simulator a lot, and there's not much good flying." So that was Neil's impression that he left with us. And of course, kind of flying I was doing was what he was talking about, the good flying. So I had to think hard for a short while there to think, should I really join the astronaut program? And of course, I knew I'd be way down the lineup of when I might get to fly. But I decided finally, if I'm going to go higher and faster, that's probably what I need to do. So I signed up and was selected in the group known as the original 19. 19 of us were chosen in that group. Went through a training program, which is customary for the rookies joining the program that was supposed to last a little over a year. And because of the busyness and schedule and the needs for help in various ways, our training really was curtailed, started getting curtailed at about 7 or 8 months. And I got a first crew assignment, a support crew assignment to Apollo 9. What at the time it was called Apollo 8. And it was asked by Jim McDivitt, who was the commander to fly that the mission, to go to Grumman Aircraft, New York, where the lunar modules had been designed and were being developed and now in manufacturing. It's showing up on the high bay floor to be tested and ready to go to Kennedy Space Center to fly. And he said his instructions were simple: to go to Grumman and make sure I got a good limb to fly. As it turned out, I worked through that for almost a year. And in fact, chapter 2 in a book I've written a little over a year ago is much about that time at Grumman, and getting the limb ready for Jim McDivitt. But along the way, probably after that year, I got my first real mission assignment. I was assigned as the backup lunar module pilot to Apollo 8 at the time. It was thought to be. Or 9, I'm sorry, 9 at the time was thought to be, which is going to be the second mission in Earth orbit with a lunar module, the second one that would fly. And as a result of the fire that we lost the crew on the launch pad and the reshuffling after that to try to hold schedule, NASA made a very bold step and deciding we would go to the moon early, but only with the command module, not with the lunar module. And so our flight, which I thought was Apollo 9, became Apollo 8. So I had actually moved a mission ahead because Jim McDivitt wanted to stay with the first testing of the lunar module in Earth orbit. So sort of mission names got swapped. And I was on the backup crew on Apollo 8 with with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. We were the backup crew for Apollo 8, which was the commander was Borman. And so anyway, that was the toughest training cycle I had, and four missions I trained for because of that switch. Because for 2 months, almost 2 months, we were training for this mission. It was a high altitude rendezvous mission in Earth orbit with a lunar module. And when they shifted it now to the go to the moon first, it was starting over again. And you only had 6 months to train. Up through Apollo 11 and starting with Apollo 7, we launched every 2 months. So basically, when you got assigned a mission on a 3-mission cycle, you had 6 months to get ready, period, because the rocket was going to launch, whether you were ready or not. So that really put us into a bind on completing the training. Then we had to revamp, and the flight plan we had to revamp. All those kind of things had to be redone now that we're going to the moon. And so that was the toughest training cycle I had of all the missions from the standpoint of the time available. And particularly since my role now as a lunar module pilot, which I knew very well. I knew the lunar module backwards and forwards from that almost the year I'd spent at Grumman testing them. And here I was now going to only fly in the command module, which I knew nothing about. So that was a big learning curve for me to get ready to feel competent to back up Bill Anders, who I was backing up on that mission. But anyway, the mission, as you know, was a highlight, and obviously the first time humans had left Earth and went to another planetary body to visit the moon, in this case, and circle it, I think, 12 times before coming back home on Christmas Eve in 1968. And it was a big, big event. From there, I cycled from 8. You normally cycle every 3 missions. So I went to Apollo 11 as a backup again because Mike Collins, who had a medical problem, and actually that's what made the opening for me on Apollo 8, because Mike had been taken out of flight status. He got well and had seniority. Mike was in a groups ahead of me. And so he was reassigned now as the prime crew on 11. And so I ended up serving a second backup now. I was a backup to Buzz Aldrin on Apollo 11. So I went through that 6-month cycle and watched Buzz fly. And obviously that's another historic mission of the Apollo program. The first time Neil and Buzz actually accomplished the big plan of landing on the moon for the first time, and doing a very short EVA, one EVA outside, walking around the lunar surface, and returned home to do a tremendous, very tiring for them, world tour after that mission. Again, cycling 3 missions. I was on that backup. I was with Jim Lovell and Ken Mattingly on 11. We cycled to 14. That's 3 missions later. Well, again, circumstances altered that career path a little bit because the crew for 13, prime crew, was Al Shepard, Stu Rusa, and Ed Mitchell. As it turned out, Al had not flown since his Mercury days, had never served on a backup crew through a training cycle. And Stu, likewise, it was his first assignment, had never trained for a mission. So they decided they needed more training time. And as a result, we got bumped a mission ahead. Jim Lovell was asked, my commander was asked, would he mind flying 13, because he knew we'd already gone through 1 training cycle on 11, and I had gone through 2. And so they said, well, y'all can fly 13. And Al Shepard and Stu Rusa and Ed Mitchell moved to 14. So we ended up flying earlier than planned. And as you know, a 13 did not end up exactly like we planned. The flight plan, the book we had was followed exactly and went well, except we lost 1 center engine on ascent, on launch, on the 2nd stage, which required it to burn a little longer, and then the 3rd stage a little more than normal to get into orbit. But we had reserves enough fuel to head out to the moon on that mission. And for 2 days, it was pretty normal. In fact, one of the mission Capcoms called up and said mission control was bored to death. Things were going so well. But then that changed. We had an electric short in one of the oxygen tanks, tank 2, when Jack Schweigert stirred the cryos. Now, I don't know, probably most of you have seen the movie Apollo 13, a Hollywood movie that was produced about the movie by director Ron Howard. And he had some, say, false drama. And at one point, given us feeling that I and Jack had an argument over Jack throwing the switch to stir the cryos and causing the explosion. Well, that wasn't the case at all. There was no way to know that electric short was going to happen. In fact, if I had not been busy still putting away equipment from a TV show we had staged, I would have been in the right couch position, and I would have been the one to throw that switch. So there's no way to know that was going to happen. But that really put a curve in. Obviously, we just threw our mission plan at that point in the trash can, so to speak. And we were on a whole new path and a new set of things to do, with a lot of help figuring out from people on the ground. The movie, one thing it did, again, falsely give you a picture of was that Mission Control did everything. In fact, Mission Control also gave you a feeling what Gene Kranz portrayed as the flight director, as the only team. They actually, for every Apollo mission, there were 4 teams in Mission Control that cycled, to cover 24 hours a day. One was kind of a floater team that took the easy times during the sleep periods or whatever, to let the ones that were having to handle the dynamic phases to be arrested, so to speak. And so it was Glenn Lunny, Jerry Griffin, and Milt Windler were the other 3 flight directors during that mission for the other teams. Krantz was the white team. And I think Ron he knew he could only cast 1 character. He said he didn't have enough time in the movie to cast as many people as he'd like. And he picked Gene as the best character, he thought, for the movie. But there are also people around the country that joined in. You have to realize the spacecraft were built by contractors, not NASA. NASA doesn't build things, they contract. And in this case, North American Aviation was the designer and builder and developer of the command and service module, the capsule. And Grumman, on the other hand, did the same thing for the lunar module and delivered them to NASA at Kennedy. That's when they were bought and prepared for launch. They also followed through, and the contractors there prepared those vehicles to launch. So many of the real experts, call it, that had been the designers, the engineers that had been designers and tested these vehicles were at the contractors, and some were consulted. I should say many probably were consulted to help work through some of the different things that had to be figured out to do to get us home. It was a pretty miserable flight after that, because we had to severely power down. The LEM normally operated at about 30 amps power on the 28-volt DC system, the basic system. And if you're landing on the moon with everything up, including radars, landing radar, rendezvous radar, etc., for an abort case maybe, it would be up to around 60 amps. Well, they took us down on a power down to 12.5 amps. So we didn't have much electronics on, which generate heat and the cabin. And of course, we had body heat, and ultimately all 3 of us stayed in the lunar module. So we had 3 bodies to provide some warmth. But the temperature worked its way down over a day to somewhere in the 30s, high 30s Fahrenheit. Probably a little cooler than you are today up where you are, but we had no jackets, that kind of thing. So we ended up taking out and putting on 3 sets of underwear, and with our 2-piece garments. Now, some of you may think, well, why didn't you put on your spacesuit? Well, first of all, the lunar module was only built to handle 2 people in spacesuits and 2 sets of hoses to hook up for the oxygen and the cooling air that might flow through the suit, which was essential. Because if you're in a suit, a rubberized interior, and you don't have cooling air, you're going to perspire, even at that temperature. So, and eventually one of the sets of hoses was tied up with a fix that was worked out to use a different size lithium cartridge from the capsule to hook up to that intake hose to scrub the carbon dioxide out of the air. That was the way that was done. If you're in a closed cabin, well, in submarine, same problem, or today on space station, or in that case, our vehicles, if you don't have something to get rid of carbon dioxide, it will build up and eventually over time could become fatal. So, and we didn't have enough of those, that supply of that kind of cartridge in the lunar module because it was only meant to operate for 2 days. And here we were going to operate for 4 days. So that tied up one of those sets of hoses anyway. Jim Lovell, the commander, just decided, well, rather than one of us get in a spacesuit and have that cooling air, we're just going to all suffer equally. And so we didn't try to use the spacesuits. But like I said, it also was damp and moisture built up because the water separator that normally functioned at the higher power settings in the vehicle at a warmer temperature weren't working adequately, and water built up everywhere. The lunar module vehicle, for lightweight, had no inner wall. It had netting material sort of across to hide a little bit and keep you from bumping in the electric wiring and plumbing, that fluid plumbing, that gaseous plumbing that was running around. And we could look through that netting and see water built up on almost every electrical connector, or any bend in a cable or pipe, a little glob of water had settled. And in fact, when Jack Swigert and I went into the command module, the capsule, to start to power it up after 4 days, we had to get out towels initially to wipe off the instrument panel and see the instruments. They were just completely covered with water because the command module was completely dead. That was never, ever planned to happen. You were never going to shut off the capsule, the mothership, so to speak, ever in a mission. So that was the first time it was ever done in our flight. But anyway, we survived under these miserable conditions. I quit eating the normal food, which was the powdered freeze-dry type food, which was only pretty good if you had hot water, which unfortunately the lunar module had no hot water. So I wasn't going to even try it with cold water. And I lived out of a second opening in the wall container, that cabinet that was for snacks. And there we had an abundance of peanuts, cookie cubes, they're little square things about that big, and bread cubes. And so that's what I mostly lived off of for 4 days, was those items. We had water, of course, but it was cold water to drink. And water was never a problem for drinking, and oxygen was never a problem for consumable, because we had tanks in both the ascent stage and the descent stage in the lunar module. So we had adequate oxygen, plus 2 full Pliss backpacks, the things we were going to wear if we had landed and gone out on the moon. They were full. So we had lots of oxygen supply. But at any rate, we struggled through that 4 days, and the really, I'll call it the thing I worried about most, just from lack of proficiency, was when we had to power up the mothership. And this was because of not using power from the 3 small entry batteries. We had 44 amp hour batteries, 3 of them, that would get you through entry for the capsule. And some of that power had been depleted because of our delays somewhat in getting ultimately the command module, the capsule, powered down. I was draining a little bit out of those. There was some recharge on the way back from the LEM, but they really weren't fully up. But they delayed that to 2.5 hours before entry, before we could start that power up with Jack Swigert and I. And we had to use this procedure that had to be invented during that time, and people worked on it for several days on the ground to build that startup procedure, which was quite lengthy. And because we had no procedure on board, because as I said before, the mothership, the capsule, was never meant to be powered down. So we had no procedure to power it up. So it worried me, because normally we trained for literally thousands of hours in simulators on anything we were going to have to do in space, and using the procedure that we had in checklists. And here we had this thing that now was handwritten by Jack when they read it up, page by page. And actually, we had no blank paper on board, no blank paper. So he ripped off backs of checklist books and carefully numbered the pages and copied that very lengthy power-up procedure that we now had to follow. And as I said, the conditions didn't look too good. Jack and I crawled into this dark capsule. Jack got out 2 towels to wipe off the instrument panel from the water. And the first step on the procedure was to push in circuit breakers on 2 large panels on each side of the spacecraft. That Jack would push in one and I'd do the other. And Jack, looking at all that water, worried about, thinking about that loss of the crew on the pad. Would we possibly have an electric short with all that water? Because it was sure to be behind the panels and on wiring. So Jack wisely said, well, he said, let's push in at each row, let's push in 6 circuit breakers. I'll give you a countdown and then we'll stop and wait a little bit before I call again to continue and see if we smell any insulation burning, which normally you could smell that if you had a short, and hopefully not a big fire at the same time. But at any rate, that's what went through the start of that activation. But sort of a miracle on top of the miracles of this mission was the vehicle came to life. Jack did the IMU alignment to get his attitude correctly. Got actually some star sightings to refine it, and set us up for the entry and entry attitude. After we had jettisoned the service module, that was about, I think, 2.5 hours before entry, and then we separated the lunar module about 45 minutes before entry, before we were going to hit the air. And Jack was flying the aircraft through entry as planned. He's a command module pilot, and left it in auto. He was obviously prepared if it deviated badly, he would take over and fly it manually. But he let it in auto all the way through entry, and we ended up having, by the statistics as best they could determine, the splashdown distance from the aircraft carrier, which was the Iwo Jima for us. We had the second, tied for the second most accurate splashdown of the program, which I say, here we had abused all that electronics and the command module because it obviously had never meant to be operated half frozen at the temperatures we got down to, which in the command module, it got below freezing because the water tanks in it were found frozen when it was picked up after entry and brought on board the aircraft carrier and inspected. The water tanks were still frozen. So we had drastically abused the electronics from the standpoint of their certification criteria, specifications. And it came to life and gave us the second most accurate splashdown of the program. At any rate, to shorten up my talk, not take too much time, I went on to another mission as the backup commander on Apollo 16 with Jerry Carr and Bill Pogue. And about 4 months into training, they canceled 18 and 19. And obviously in that cycle on 16, I would have commanded Apollo 19 had we flown it. So Deke Slayton to give Jerry and Bill a flight because they were running out of seats. He moved them to Skylab, and they ended up flying the last man mission on Skylab. And I inherited Stu Russa and Ed Mitchell, who had just come off 14, and Ed had landed on the moon with Al Shepard. So I finished out that deadhead backup crew assignment on 16. I went off to Harvard Business School. Actually, I was interested in eventually getting into program management and to a 4-month pressure cooker course at Harvard. Came back and went into the Orbiter program office for the Orbiter design development for 4 years with some experience there in program management. and was then assigned as the commander of Crew 1 with Gordon Fullerton of 2 crews, second crew being Joe Engle and Dick Truly, to fly the very first orbiter Enterprise, which we flew back at my home back at Flight Research Center. It was that time was named Dryden, and today, of course, is renamed again to Armstrong Flight Research Center. But where we launched it, the orbiter off the top of a 747 aircraft that could get us up to about 25,000 feet for release. And I commanded 5 of the 8 test flights we did on Enterprise, which I consider really a highlight of my career, because I'd been so involved in the design development of that vehicle with its 4 years in the program office. I'd been there actually from day one when we evaluated the proposals that were submitted by 4 contractors as to who would even build the space program, the orbiter. And Rockwell was chosen at that time. And so I was sort of birthed to finality with Enterprise through the design to when it first flew. So that was a big milestone and remembrance in my career, total career. I was scheduled to fly the 3rd orbital flight with Jack Lausma, where we were going to go up and rescue Skylab. It was falling in. And the thought was we'd carry up a small booster in a space shuttle, rendezvous, and Jack actually would remotely fly this small booster to go dock with Skylab. We'd get safely away, and people on the ground would actually orient the Skylab space station and start the rocket to either boost it to higher altitude or to re-enter it safely in the Pacific Ocean, I assume. And that mission went away when Skylab fell in quicker. And I knew I would be now with the schedule delays on shuttle. We had tile problems late, caused it really a 2-year slip. In the first flight, I knew I would be sitting around about 2 years to get to fly. And so I decided I had an opportunity to join Grumman Corporation at the time, which I was on long-range plans, and went then to work for Grumman, and was there for the next 17 years, including after a couple of years through a merger with Northrop, another aircraft company, which became Northrop Grumman. Their primary business was making aircraft, although initially for 4 years I ran what space programs we had at Grumman. Most of the business was with the military at the time, although I did win 2 major programs with NASA during my time. One for 12 years with Lockheed and Thiokol for the space processing contract. 12 years turning around shuttles after they landed on the ground to get them ready for the next flight. And the second contract I won was a system engineering and integration contract I led for the early development of Space Station. At that time, it was called Space Station Freedom. And when the Russians joined the program, they changed it to the ISS, International Space Station. That's still going around every day. In fact, a new crew has just flown up on Saturday. Yesterday, a new crew launched and has rendezvoused with Space Station. And so it's still ongoing since 2000. There's been constantly people orbiting the Earth on the ISS. So after 17 years in the business world, I retired and am now actually a great grandfather. In a couple of months, I'll hit 90 years old. And I'm just feel very blessed to still be around and pretty good shape. Unfortunately, I've developed some neuropathy in my feet, which causes a little balance problem. And if I'm out and about, worrying about unsteady ground or whatever, where I might trip, I use a lightweight three-wheel walker. So that kind of prohibits my talking to firsthand to elementary school children, because I found that with my gray hair, wearing glasses, and using a three-wheel walker, I have even wearing a flight jacket, I have a hard time convincing them that I was an astronaut ever. But at any rate, other than that, I do a lot of these sorts of talks using online capability, and do speak to groups at Space Center Houston locally here in Houston, where I live.
All right, there we go. That was an amazing keynote speaker at the Stardust Festival yesterday. Fred Haise, and again, Apollo 13 astronaut. If you watch the movie, he's played by Bill Paxton in Apollo 13. How amazing is that? And it was just a treat. You can listen to Fred speak 24/7. And again, all part of the Stardust Festival, which is happening all this week. And again, stardustfestival.com for all the details. And you can also go down to the Matagami First Nation and watch some of the rocket launches all this week as well, and see some real rockets go about 60 kilometers high in some cases. So pretty cool stuff there. But big thanks for tuning in tonight. We have KLOMP working. He's working next door with the NOE in our side segment studio there. We're getting set for the Timmins. Well, hey, there's KLOMP there. He's back. Northern Ontario Expo and the Timmins Expo coming up September 15th and 16th. And again, we're just shooting some behind-the-scenes footage. So be watching future shows for that. Now, before we wrap things up, you had a chance to comment. Listening to our first guest tonight, we had George Pirie, member of Provincial Parliament, and of course, Fred Haise from Apollo 13, a part of the Stardust. And again, any comment will have a chance to win 4 tickets, a weekend pass, 4 of them, to the Timmins Fall Fair. Darth Vader just walks right through in the back. So we're going to pull up the Wheel of Winning, Ronnie, find out who is going to be off to the Fall Fair. Timmins Fall Fair coming up. There we go. There we got Darth Vader over here. half a Darth Vader. There's Darth right there. Getting set for, yes, Timmins Expo 2023, September 15th and 16th. 16th and 17th. There we go. We're doing selfies. we're doing it right here.
Smile, Kinsman. You've been a bad boy.
All right, giving away some tickets now. 4 weekend passes to the Timmins Fall Fair. Let's click the draw button here, and good luck. We'll find out who is going to win. And again, we'll find out the winner after the show and get you those passes into your mailbox. There we go. And Melissa. There we go, Melissa. Drop those off to you. We'll drop them off to Chad at Elite Geeks tomorrow for you as well. But she's off to, Timmins Fall Fair coming up at September 9th and 10th at the Mount Joy Arena. We just want to wrap things up tonight with a big old thanks for tuning in. And again, great guests at the Stardust Festival. Again, stardustfestival.com. Check it all out as we get ready to wrap things up here on a Monday night. Ronnie, we'll see you tomorrow night, 7 o'clock.